Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Please have your attention.
Now showtime. Are you ready? Are you ready for start time?
Let's find out. Ready? Let's go.
What's up, Facebook Live? We are at it again. Thank you for joining us for another episode of DJ R.O.B. Presents Taking It Back. And I appreciate you guys for hanging in there. We're about 20 minutes behind where we were going to start. We had some technical difficulties, but first and foremost, I want to thank you for watching last week's episode. We had Eddie Fluellen from Switch. Great funk band from Motown, known for their funk songs and their ballads, and we're keeping the funk alive. So this week, man, I'm excited about this week because if I had to name my 5 favorite funk bands, and that's hard because I love, if people who know me know I'm a funk, I love funk genre music, but if I had to name my favorite 5 funk groups, this member would be in that top 5, and that is Confunction. So we're keeping funk alive here on the Taking It Back episode. So without further ado, I got to introduce my man, founding member of Confunction and his own prestigious solo career as Michael Cooper. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome my guest, Michael Cooper. And there he is.
Hey,
For the magic
man.
of technology, we found you.
Man,
So thank you.
I'm still kind of goofing around here. As you can see, I got my specs on because I couldn't see better with them on. I can actually
That's
see
cool.
you.
Well, thank you for joining us, and I know you got a flight tonight, so we're going to make this as quick as possible. We're going to just, like I always do, I start in the back, I start taking it back, and then we move to the present because you guys are still doing things. You got upcoming shows coming up, so let's take it back to the beginning. And if you don't mind, everybody knows a lot of the funk bands originated from Ohio. You know, your Zaps, your Ohio Players, your Lakesides, your Heat Waves, your Bootsy. But you guys put another city on the map, and that's in the Bay Area of Vallejo. So let's talk about the beginning and your first band and how Confunction came about. And I'm going to let you roll with that, starting in Vallejo. How did that all happen?
Well, Vallejo, of course, obviously, like me personally, I was born, bred, and buttered in Vallejo. And basically, I would start somewhere in the high school range where we were doing the after, what they call after game dances and things like that. And there was, to go back to the complete beginning, I was in the marching band, and that's where I met Mr. Lewis McCall. And we both were drummers in the band, in the marching band. And we got invited to play a thing called the Senior Breakfast. And it was just, you know, I played a little piano, he played drums. And if you can imagine, you know, he drowned the piano out. We had a gentleman by the name of Mr. Crosley singing, and we did 2 songs that day. And we got raving. Everybody was yelling and screaming. It was just great. So we decided to start a band. And we got a guitar player. And I had been thumping around on the bass in my teen years. And I guess I was around 16, 17 years old. And we started a band called Project Soul. And Project Soul, we played the military bases and played the different high schools and high school dances. And we grew into a 7-piece horn band and got pretty popular around the northern Bay Area, around Vallejo, Fairfield, Travis Air Force Base, Sacramento. And we started getting going pretty good. And a gentleman began to manage us who owned a record shop by the name of Mr. Joe Connors. And he was connected with Stax Records down in Memphis. And they had a group called the Soul Children. Soul Children came to California, had a big falling out, big fight with their band. And so Joe said, well, I got a band over here with a rehearsal hall all set up, ready to go. They came over, they brought their drummer, and he set their drummer down with us. We learned 5 songs, 5 of their hit songs in like an afternoon. Next thing we know, we were over in Berkeley Community Theater, backing up the Soul Children. And the rest is history, man. They took us to Memphis, Tennessee. About 2 or 3 years later, we changed our name to Confunction.
Man, so Project Soul was the backing band for Soul Children, essentially.
Yes.
And man, I
Yes.
remember that song. I'll Be
Project
the Other
Soul.
Woman. Ooh, I used to love that song.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll Be
what?
the Other Woman, The Sweeter He Is,
Yeah.
Hearsay. Yeah, we played all that stuff.
So what year was it that you actually changed the name to Confunction?
That would be the year of 1975.
Dang.
We were working with a gentleman called Ted Sturgis, and he hooked up with a little record company called Freetone.
There it is. You see that on the
And Ted
screen?
said, "You guys are going to change that name. It's not going to work as far as recording is concerned." So, and I'll give you a quick story on how we came with Confunction. We had played with a group called the Nightlighters, and everybody knows the Nightlighters from KG. Da 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 da
Yes.
da 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 da. You know that song. And anyway, they were the backup band for New Birth, right? That's how they got their start. They were backup band for New Birth. Anyway, they were out at the pool one morning. We were all staying at a hotel on Sacramento State, and they were out at the pool and they were rehearsing this song. And just the horns only, no full band, just the horns, guys in their swimming trunks. And they were playing this riff, da 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 da. Hey, and they would yell, hey, da 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 da. All right. We thought that was just so impressive. We said, now these guys are sounding really great. The horn sounded great. And later on that night, they came out and opened up for the band for their act, New Birth. And they said, we're going to play our first single, but at first we're going to kick off with the B side. And be careful because this has a funny spelling. And they spelled it out. They said, if we spell it like this, we call it Confunction, CONFUNKSHUN. And they begin to play the song. And Lord have mercy, we got a chance to hear the whole song with the bass, the drums, the sax player. The song took us, we could not believe it. Now, fast forward back to Memphis, Tennessee, being told to change your name from Project Soul. We went through one night. We drank wine and we talked, and somebody said, hey, what about that song, Confunction? And we looked at each other, and the next thing, there he is. Next thing we knew, hey, man, we had adapted the name Confunction. We were down at Bennett's Club, Rosewood, and we told them we will no longer, I see it, we no longer will be known as Project Soul. We are now Confunction.
So that's crazy. That's a crazy story that you have a song and inspires a name for the group. Some people work a long time trying to find a great name for the group, and then a song just triggers it. And then I put up that image of you guys did a remake of a Bob Dylan song, the Mr. Tambourine, under the Confunction name.
Tambourine Man, that's right.
That's crazy.
That actually literally was a hit record in what they call the tri-state area. It was like Arkansas, Tennessee, Missouri-ish kind of, or maybe I think it was maybe Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee. But that record got a lot of airplay, and we actually had to add that thing to our show. And we did very well with that. We actually got a few gigs booked because of that. The second one was Click.
There
we
it
put
is.
out another one. Click didn't do as well as Tambourine Man, but we literally joined a very small record label the size of a garage and literally had a local hit. So that's pretty cool.
And the thing that you guys are blessed to be a part of is the historic, everybody knows rock, the rock and roll had Woodstock, but the soul and funk had an event concert called Watt Stacks, and your band got to play in that. Do you have any memories of that? And I know you were backing up Soul Children and Rufus Thomas. Do you have any memories? I know Bar Kays was in there, Isaac Hayes. What do you think about that? Do you have any memories?
Well, first of all, the first thing I think about my memories was how nervous I was. I had never in my life been that nervous. We had 102,000 people. We had never, I don't think I'd ever seen that many people in one place, let alone standing on stage playing. And I think Rufus knew it. We rehearsed in Memphis, so we didn't see Rufus until time to play. So Soul Children we were playing with, so we didn't have the nerves as bad with the Soul Children. But Rufus came out, And when people see that and they see us standing there, we look cool, like we're calm, but we are so nervous because we don't know. Only thing we know is that we rehearse the songs among ourselves from the record. And when Rufus turned around in a pink hot pants suit and hey fellas, y'all ready for it? We said, yeah, because he knew he was getting the nerves out of us. And he knew how nervous we had to be. He said, y'all ready for it? Yeah. He said, well, here it is. And we downbeat it on breakdown. And when those people went up like they did, the nerves went away and we began to play the hell out of the breakdown for Rufus.
That's great. That was the big leagues. I mean, every major soul and funk artist was there. So that's got to be a great memory that you've had. And after that in the early 70s, you guys say, okay, we don't want to be the backup band no more. And you change your name to Confunction and you leave Freetone and you get a deal on Mercury. Mercury Records, shoot, they already had Ohio Players and a bunch of, that was a great label for funk. So how did that happen? How did you get the word? Did you have to send demos or because you were already in the mix with the backup band stuff? How did that work that you got the deal on Mercury?
And it's funny how that actually worked totally separate from the whole Watt Stax connection and Soul Children. By then, of course, we had left Soul Children and we were out on our own doing local gigs. But what was cool about it is we were playing a nightclub circuit within Memphis, Tennessee. We play one club on Wednesday, another club on Thursday, another club on Friday. And then sometimes we get called to play the colleges in the area. But there was this one nightclub, Bennett's Club Rosewood, that we would play 4 shows a night. And anybody could drop in there on a Wednesday night and see Confunction playing to about almost 900 people. It was an ex-movie theater. And what happened is our booking agent at the time, Mr. Ray Brown, was in tight with a gentleman named Charles Fash of Mercury Records up in Chicago. And Ray asked Charlie to come down and see the band. And Charlie Fash, after having signed the Bar-Kays and had a hit record on the Bar-Kays, he came down one morning about 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, flew down and stood in the back of the theater. We were fully dressed in our uniforms. We turned on the lights. No audience, just him at 8 o'clock in the morning. And we did 5 songs for Charlie Fash. And from the back of the room, Charlie never came up and talked to us and shook our hands or nothing. From the back of the room, he says, hey, Mike, have Juddy give me a call. He's talking about the famous Judd Phillips. And Judd Phillips was the branch for Mercury in Memphis, Tennessee. We waited all day long by the phone. By about 5 that evening, Charlie had told Judd that he was signing Confunction to a 2-record deal. We lost our minds.
And the rest is history, because I'm going to tell you something. Confunction, and I said this at the beginning, was one of my favorite funk bands. And there's a lot of funk bands that influenced me, and I even started my own funk band. We'll get into that later because my funk band actually opened up for you guys here in Las Vegas. We'll talk about that later. But when it comes to funk, you know, you had other groups like Cameo and even the Bar-Kays a little bit, and their later albums, people always say, oh, they got a little more poppy. But to me, Confunction always stayed funky from album 1 to album 10, you know, and we're going to talk about the albums. And of course, the first album was self-titled, just called Confunction. And then no big number 1 hits, but still a funky first effort. And then you get the Secrets album, which it goes gold. And then the single Fun probably goes gold and it hits number 1 on the R&B. So I seen somewhere where you were inspired by Daz, Brick, the song Daz by Brick. And that thing was blowing up. I mean, kind of the whole horn thing and the whole catchiness of it. That's what inspired you to write Fun?
Absolutely. I was really knocked out by the whole flute thing. And the fact that they were a jazz band that managed to just put funk under their jazz. And I was inspired by that on a ride to Little Rock, Arkansas one time. And I knew that the first album had not yielded a hit record for us. And I knew we'd have to get a little more competitive in what we were doing. So I wrote this groove and I just made it simple. And I just said, hey, I made it simple. We're gonna write something that we know is gonna work. So I wrote this thing, this little ditty called Fun, and I put a second F on it just to draw attention to make people ask, why did you put two F's in the word fun? Well, you know, I'm inspired by Sly and the Family Stones, of course, from the Bay Area. And then I was inspired by this song Daz, because I wanted us to have a flute solo. Our guy played flute, so we wanted us to have a flute solo. And lo and behold, they dropped the single, and it worked. It was absolutely off the chain, and the single went all the way to #1.
So this is the second album that we're talking about with the fun song with the two F's. The one I just showed previously was your first effort, both on Mercury Records. But yeah, when Fun came out, woo, Lord, that was the joint.
Yeah.
And it continued from there. You guys, God, every album, I'm telling you, was hot. In some of your memories of the next album, which was, I believe, Love Shine. I'm just gonna put up the album. Obviously, I'm a DJ and I'm an old school funk fanatic, so I got all the vinyl, and we'll talk about it. But I want you to tell the story on this third album about Shake and Dance with Me. And the song, I mean, so out of context, not a funk song at all. Like the Daz Brick song, of course, that enthused you to do fun. But the Shake and Dance with Me, the thing that got you on that one was a group that's not even a funk group. And I love that story. So if you can just tell that story real quick. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Fun was, I think, just getting a #1 rating. And you remember there's no internet, there's no cell phones. So we're out on the road touring on Fun. And we get a phone call saying that we have got to have a single to follow up. We can't wait for you guys to finish the album. And so I think we only did 8 cuts on that second album, but he said, we got to have a single right away. So I'm down in Montgomery, Alabama. And we went to the football game, and the marching band played Fun. That's how hot Fun was. I got up and I was walking back to the bus, and this guy pulls up in this car, right? Windows down, and he's blasting the song. And it goes like, sugar, da 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 da, oh honey, da 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 da. And of course, I knew that was the R.O.B.s. And I'm listening to this song and I'm going, wait a minute. So I'm thinking, I get back to the bus and I plug my guitar into the little recorder we had on the bus. And I start strumming out this chords to the R.O.B.s, but I said, well, I'm not gonna rip these guys off. What I'm gonna do is reverse everything. And just think of that song when I'm writing. Within 20 minutes, I had written the music to Shake and Dance with Me. Within another hour, I had thought about, if anybody is a musician and they ever listen to the R.O.B.s and you know Shake and Dance with Me, there's a portion of the song that plays that you can sing either song over the top of the other. So you can sing over R.O.B.s song, you can sing Shake and Dance with Me, da, 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 every night and day. Da, da. And over the R.O.B.s song, over Confunction, Shake and Dance, you can say sugar, da, 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 oh, honey. Anyway, I was inspired by some cartoon characters to come up with the second single for Confunction. Needless to say, the single dropped, the album came behind it. People were so hungry for the album because the single drop, it crisscrossed the charts with Fun, and the album came out. The album went gold in 6 weeks.
That's crazy. And ever since I heard that story, when I hear "Shake and Dance with Me," I'm singing the acapella of "Sugar Sugar on Top," because that story and that, I mean, I think I have the luxury of getting stems to old stuff, being a DJ and stuff, and there's these little backdoor areas where you can get the stems. One day I'm gonna put that acapella on top of "Shake and Dance with Me." I'm gonna send it to you. If you haven't heard it, I know we always hum along.
I'm not even sure if it's in the same key. I can't remember.
I'll make it in the same key. I can make it in the same key. That's a great story. And like I said, as soon as I heard that story, it's got stuck in my head. And that's the way music is. You know, there's only so many keys, so many chords, and you have to get inspired by other things. You take a little of this, and then you branch it off and make something better or something funkier, or turn it into a different genre. And that's what you did. And an album after album, man, I couldn't wait for the next Confunction to come out and go to the store and buy it. And you did Love Shine, and Shake and Dance with Me was on there. And by this time, you guys are touring with all these hit albums and hit singles, and you're on the road with some of the biggest other funk bands. I know you, I seen some old posters when you guys were with Commodores and the Barcades, and any special tour, I know you guys are superstars. And by that time, were you starstruck by anybody, or did you go on the road or in the studio and met a celebrity that you always wanted to meet? I know the Watt Stacks was big, but when you guys are on your own tour with Confunction, did anything inspire anybody? Say, wow, I can't believe we're on the road with this group?
Well, that was a over and over again phenomenon with us. We put out the next album. I think it might have been Candy, and Chase Me did the same thing. Just flew to the top of the charts. We were, next thing we know, we were top 10 with Chase Me. So by then we had opened for the OJs. We had opened, Candy. I'm sorry. Yeah, Candy. That was it.
Yeah, you got your order right. So as soon as you said that, I said, yeah, he's got his chronological right, because I remember when we talked at the Silverton during the sound check, I showed you a picture of all my records, and I said, this is all in order. And you said, wait a minute, that one ain't in the right order. And I said, yeah, it is. I mean, I did my research. I got the albums, and then you took a minute and you said, no, you're right. That is the right order. But so far you're 10 for 10. But go ahead and finish that story.
Well, yeah. And at my age, that's good. All right. But yeah, we got Chase Me out there. We managed to get Chase Me out there, and we were asked to tell you some of the other groups that we had toured with before we got asked this question. We toured with Bootsy's Rubber Band, we toured with the OJs, and we toured with the Commodores. And those are the three we would open up, and we would play a couple of cover tunes, because they only gave us like 20 minutes or 25 minutes. We play a couple of cover tunes, and of course we'd end with fun. We'd play Chase Me, Shake and Dance with Me, and we'd end with Fun. And the house would be over with. It would be over with. I mean, we almost got kicked off the Commodores tour having 3 hits, and would blow the house up right before the Commodores came out with Fun. And I think by the time we got to when Chase Me rose up to the top, we were literally asked to headline. And when we got out on our headline tour, we had, who was hot at the time, Anita Ward,
Ring My Bell,
McFadden and Whitehead, Ain't No Stopping Us Now, and Gap Band, Oops Upside Your Head, right? And they had dropped, I think their second single came out, and they were on fire. And by the only reason that we were headlining over them is that our show, we had put together a show from our album cuts and from other people's hits and album cuts, and our dress from Bill Witten. We were dressed like LTD taught us how to dress. You call Bill Witten up and he'll dress you. So we dressed like the Commodores. We literally dressed but the same guy. I mean, they were $2,000 a pop, the outfits. So we invested. We had managers that were all in cahoots with the Commodores and everybody. So we were looking like headliners. Anyway, we jumped out there and we headlined, and we did the Carolina Coliseum on that tour. We saw when we were going to sound check, we saw a line that wrapped around the building. We got into the building after the first two acts played. We got into the building. The show had sold out, and there was 3,000 people outside that could not get in. Somehow they had oversold the show. And that's when we knew that, we're going to be in this for the rest of our lives. We knew we were in this totally to win it because we were not ready to headline. And there was a funny thing about that night because the promoters who promoted the show, our managers who were not with us, we had a road manager, we didn't have our managers with us. The managers who had set that contract up wrote in a percentage clause. So after we got our guarantee, which was minuscule, I think it was like 15,000. After we got our guarantee, the percentage kicked in. We wound up getting paid $90,000.
That's awesome.
As a matter of fact, $92,000 for that one show. The promoters, the combined promoters, knew that they were not going to let us walk out with that money. So our road manager went up, they counted out the $92,000. And the promoters went up to the road manager and they told him, they said, listen, you guys are way too young to be taking this kind of money out of this marketplace. We think we need to get some of this money back. That was their rationale. So our road manager, who was our bass player's brother, he turned into a deputy sheriff later on in his life. He said, I'll tell you what, you might be right. Let me go down here and talk to the guys and I'll be right back. So the box office people held on to the money. He goes downstairs, finds two police officers, two Carolina moonlighting police officers. He goes back up to the box office, walks past the guys, goes up to the box office, presents his ID. The box office hands him $92,000 in a box. He takes the box under his arm. He gets with the two police officers. He walks past the promoters. Keep in mind, this guy's 26 years old. All these promoters are in their 40s. He walks past the promoters. He comes down and he tells the bus driver, he says, you go to the hotel because we're getting ready to come on. We haven't come on yet. You go to the hotel, you go get to the front desk, you get everybody's key, right? In those days, you could do that, right? Get everybody's key, go to everybody's room, throw the bedclothes off the bed, throw all their possessions and clothes in the middle, wrap it up in a sheet. We'll reimburse the hotel. We'll buy all the sheets, wrap everybody's stuff up, throw it in the bus, come back, back the bus in and be ready to roll. We go on stage. Now, these guys are thinking Bernard, his road manager, is down with us talking about how much cash they're going to get out of this take. Bernard has set the bus up with everybody's belongings wrapped up in a sheet inside their bunks. He says, when you come off stage, he said, you grab your guitars and your clothes that you took off to put these uniforms on, run on the bus. We got a problem. And we did the show. We came off stage sweaty. We jumped on the bus. He told the bus driver, get on the highway, man. Get on the highway. Just head for the next city. Get on the highway. He said, well, what about the hotel? What about checking out? He said, we'll do all that later. Let's just go. He came to us he told us to come to the back of the bus. He opened that box and he dumped out $90,000. He said, let me tell y'all one, and you know what he said? One yada yada thing. You don't pay me enough to do this job. He had risked his life to get out of town with money that truly belonged to us. And we went on down the road. And of course, we pulled over, about 20 miles down the road and called the managers who promptly flew to the next city because they knew these guys were going to be after us because they were also the promoters on the next city, right? And when the managers came to town, Mr. Clarence Jones and all these guys, they came to town and we didn't have to worry about anything. They must have cut a deal with the guys and straightened them out. But our road manager, our young 26-year-old road manager was not having it. I got 92 grand. I'm getting out of town with 92 grand. That was our first brush with what we call it the mafia. It wasn't the mafia. It was just a organized crime. And we got out of town on our first headlining tour, but that was the only night we made that kind of money. But we got out of town with 92 grand and it was like, hello, welcome to being a headliner.
Mm-hmm. You hear those stories all the time. You were part of one of those stories. It was scandalous back then, but smart. That dude know how to, when you say exit stage left, you guys exited stage left. That was dope.
Well, And we had no idea why. We had no idea. It wasn't until he dumped that money out and then told us the story, we were blown away.
Eddie Fluellen is in the chat right now. I had him on last week. He's the member from Switch. I'm sure you guys know each other. He had a question. Inspiration. He said, "What is the inspiration for Got to Be Enough?" As if the grooves weren't enough, the vocals totally on point. I love the horns and everything. So man, another Motown legend giving you props. What was the inspiration for Got to Be Enough?
Inspiration for Got to Be Enough was "Don't Stop Till You Get Enough."
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge hit, and I knew Felton could pull it off, what I was writing. Felton gave me the track, and I knew the track was infectious. I knew, and that by then we were getting great money, great budgets to record albums, and I knew when I got through with the track, nobody really cared very much about what I wrote. They wasn't really into that. I got to be enough. Think about it. Don't you doubt it. They said, well, you've done better with Fun and Chase Me and Shake and Dance, but this got to be So the guy that was responsible for getting our orchestration done, a guy by the name of Jerry Peters, took the track down to LA, and he got the Earth, Wind and Fire horns to play on it. And then he brought the track back to San Francisco and got the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra to play on it.
Wow.
And when we attended the session, having the horns on there, and we attended the session with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestras, we knew that we had a hit. We knew, it's a funny thing to be in the studio and know that you have a hit. There's no doubt in your mind that it's going to be a hit. And that made that song my favorite. That made it my favorite song because I got to see these old guys and these ladies in there playing these violins to all this funk, and knowing that with the rough mix that was up on the board that we had ourselves another hit.
So you're saying with all the songs, hundreds of songs, Got to Be Enough is one of your favorite, if not your favorite?
Got to Be Enough, I guess, it's the happiest song that I know by confunction because of my experiences when I wrote the song, how I love Don't Stop Till You Get Enough by Michael Jackson. I played that song over and over. And I said, it was always something. I said, man, I could write a song, something like that. And when Felton gave me the track, I wrote the hook first. I didn't write the verses until, later on, but I wrote the hook first. I Got to Be Enough. Yeah. Think about it. Don't you doubt it. I want to be your stuff. Think about it. Don't you? When I did that, I didn't have verses yet. So I think I put the verses, one verse at one time, and then later on, before time to mix, I put another one in, and then came the horns, the horn section and the string section, and by then I had the verses on there, and I knew I had a hit. And the inspiration for that literally was still Got to Be Enough. But don't Stop Till You Get Enough by Michael Jackson. That
was perfect timing for that question, Eddie Fluellen, because chronologically, that's where we were at with the Spirit of Love album, which has Got to Be Enough on it. So that was perfect timing. If we don't have to go in order, but luckily we've been going in order. And what other memories do you have recording after Spirit of Love? You got Touch. I loved Too Tight. Man, I love Too Tight. So you have any memories about this recording?
Well, that album, if I'm not mistaken, what is our hit on that album? I can't even remember.
Too Tight. I loved Too Tight. That was on there. Ladies Wild.
Yeah.
Give Your
Too
Love
Tight
to Me.
Would be our hit on that album, I think.
Pride and Glory, Kidnap, Welcome Back to Love, Touch, Can't Say Goodbye and Play With It.
Yeah, I'd say Too Tight
was all over the radio.
Yeah, Too Tight was our first pop. That was our first record that actually crossed over and got a little attention on the pop charts. We played, actually, you remember Dionne Warwick did a thing, was it Solid Gold? I think it was
the show Warwick. Solid Gold? Yeah.
Solid Gold. And we appeared on there because of Too Tight. We got on that was a pop TV show. And we got on there with Too Tight. And I wrote Too Tight, again, always under pressure to write the hit. Got to get a hit. I was always under pressure. You got to have something. So I wrote Too Tight, knowing that I had this arsenal of horns and strings by Jerry Peters would take it and rock it with horns and strings, right? And I wrote it at the pool at the Holiday Inn in San Diego with a Porta studio with an extension cord, if you can believe it, a extension cord out to the pool. Who takes a extension cord and runs it around all that water? Mm-hmm. And I sat there and with my guitar and I wrote Too Tight. I played the drums on the guitar, played everything on the guitar. And of course, the band by then had a lot of confidence in me. So we didn't even record Too Tight. I mean, we didn't even play Too Tight until we got into the studio. Mm-hmm. And we did at a place called Different Fur. I remember we weren't too happy with the studio because they were just too automated, and we were really wanting to be older school and more tubes. And these guys had Harrison automation boards, and we were just scared of that. And so we wound up doing Too Tight. It wound up working, and of course Jerry takes it down and puts the strings on it and the horns again, and off to the races we go with that hit. So what can I say, man? We were rolling. It was something to know when you released a record that it was going to do something. You knew it was going to get on the charts, but you just didn't know how high.
Well, even though you said that went pop and you ended up being on the broadcast of Solid Gold, and that's a big pop audience, that song was still funky. And the horns, it's funk. So that's what I was saying about you guys got mainstream audiences eventually and got those accolades and the gold singles go out, but it was still funk. It didn't go away from funk. And then we got to this, which...
Oh.
If I had to, my slow jam tape, I told Eddie Fluellen from Switch last week, my slow jam tape had to have I Call Your Name and There'll Never Be, but Straight from the Heart was on the slow jam tape too. And love the artwork on this album. What was the inspiration? I know it's supposed to be 7 and it's supposed to be the 7th album, but really it's really the 8th or 9th album if you count the original Confunction, and if you count this, which we didn't even talk about. But what was the inspiration for the songs on the 7 LP?
Well, by then you have to realize a lot. I don't know how else to put it. And anybody with a group would inspire to this. This is you start changing as a group. You get married. You have kids. Mm-hmm. You write differently. Felton actually bailed us out with Straight from the Heart because we weren't writing as a group anymore. It was really like them against us. Me and Felton wrote all the hits, and so why bother? These guys are going to make all the money and write all the hits. So I think during that time, it was time to slow down. It's time to get something that was going to last. And even though Straight from the Heart didn't rise very high on the charts, it sort of took a magical ride, if you will, and it just took the East Coast by storm. You've got the sitar in there, you've got the cool falsetto guy in there, just like the Stylistics or just like the Blue Magic. You got that Delphonics-y kind of thing going on. And when we took a different direction, it turned out to be right on time. It turned out to be, and I guess we'll get to that other song that was never a single, but it gets to a point where a song comes along and the chart number really doesn't matter. You needed that song. Right. And Straight from the Heart just made everything smooth out, and it got sophisticated, and it just took us to a whole nother level with a whole nother audience. Actually, the ladies of the East Coast and up and down the Eastern Seaboard, they fell in love with that song. Oh my God. Which to this day, helped. We do not do a Confunction show without it.
Right. The audience now is appreciating you for songwriting and ballads. They knew you for the funk stuff, but that's probably what helped the next slow jam, which we're going to talk about. That was never a single. But I bought that album and I thought Bad Lady was funky. Bad Lady was dope. But then when I start, putting him and listen to the slow jam, I said, man, I put that straight from the heart on repeat. And like when I booked you guys here in Las Vegas, I said, man, I hope they do Straight from the Heart, because I didn't know if I'd never seen you guys live, and I said, man, I know they're gonna do but are they gonna do Straight from the Heart? And you guys did. Man, it's one of my favorite ballads, and which takes us to the next album. Boom. To the Max album, which has Misgot the Body. And I'm going to tell you something. I was in a funk band in high school. Most bands had a jazz choir, but here in Vegas, at this high school that I went to, our teacher let us have a funk band. So we didn't do the typical jazz stuff. And we went to Disneyland and performed, and Knott's Berry Farm performed, and all the junior high schools here in Las Vegas. And as students, we got to pick the songs that the band would play. We did Cat Band, we did Commodores, we did Kool and the Gang, but we did Misgot the Body. Our band did. I played drums, and so that has a special place in my heart because I got to play in a band and we played that song. But the ghost hit of this album is Love's Train, and there's a few anomalies with this song. First of all, the story of how the song happened and how you wrote it. Great story. You have to tell it now. I'm sure he's told it a few times, but my audience probably never heard that story. But for those of you, Love's Train is the ballad of ballads and can function on stage. They can't do a concert without Love's Train. It's like you said in your show, it's one of your anthems. So the story is incredible. So if you can just give us that story, you're probably tired of telling, but you got to give us that story one more time about Love's Train.
The good news about that story is now today, when I say today, I mean within the last 5 years, we can successfully tell the story and not be uncomfortable because of our age. We can laugh about it. But the story of Love's Train is a simple love triangle. During this one of our sessions, I'm not sure it was during the recording of the album. I'm not sure it was during recording of To the Max. Maybe it was. But we got it. A young lady visited us in the studio. And when I say young lady, she was young. All of us were in our late 20s. A couple of us were headed for 30, which was really up there in that time. And this lady came in, and her genre of approach and presentation of herself was of a woman of late 20s. Later, we found out she was 19, which we didn't know. But the bottom line is she caught the eye of me, but she was already involved with Felton. And so she changed her mind and began to move her relationship away from him to me. Now, this is where it gets strange, because as our relationship developed and flourished and went through, we really fell into it. We were really tight. We were really a couple. She decided to go back and backstep and check him out. So what happened was, some kind of way, she got her wires crossed, and he dropped by her apartment. And me with by then, we were driving Porsches and full of ourselves. And, so I'm deciding I'm just going to drop by my lady's house at 1 o'clock in the morning and ring her buzzer. And she's going to open the door and invite me up, just like that, because she had done it before. Anyway, the bottom line is, when I ring that buzzer and she answered, and she says, she said these words, which I have no idea. I said the words out of character. She told me I couldn't be coming up because someone was up there. I said, if by chance you let me just come up and we can talk about this, I really want to see you. That's what I said. And then she knew, she could hear my voice trembling, and she knew that this was going to be trouble. And she says, listen, sugar, Michael, honey, I can't let you up here. There's somebody up here. And she admitted it. Someone is up here. She said, I wish you were up here, but somebody else is up here. It ripped me to shreds. I went from this 29-year-old macho karate man to this little 12-year-old punk. I went and got in my big turbo Porsche and I drove away, going down the highway crying like a baby because I knew who was up there, right? And I get home the next morning. I'm been up half the night bawling and half sleeping, and I got up the next morning and I had to pass my studio in my house. And I looked at the recording reels on the studio, and I remembered that this track was sitting there waiting for me to write something on it. It was a lot of tracks, but this one in particular. And I rewound it, and as soon as I started playing it, I had to mute the track with Felton's voice because he had a different set of lyrics on it. And I muted the track. His voice was the last voice I wanted to hear at that moment. And I rewound it and I started, and all of a sudden, exactly what had happened popped into my head. And it was like all night, I can't sleep because I'm too hurt and I'm too weak and I got to call her up. Now, I rearranged events within the lyrics, but I dialed the number and no one answered till 2 o'clock. But that was me trying to get buzzed in, right? And of course, I remembered what brother mutters the words, "if by chance." Only a geek would say, "if by chance." Who says that? And of course, I said, that's exactly what I'm gonna put on this bridge. If by chance you let me come over, which I was already over, but I was down on the street and I want to see you, right? And then she said, she did call me sugar and she did say honey.
That's great.
And she, and I added the word darling because she was from New Orleans, or her people were from New Orleans. And then she said, sugar, honey, darling, I really want to see you too, but someone is over, but baby, I really want to be with you. And then of course, now I'm crying, right? If by chance you let me just hold you down, I'm down on my knees. And I wrote that song. I swear I wrote that song in probably 40 minutes. I only had one hook. If you notice, only had one hook.
It's
if
genius.
You found that special lover and love keeps you tied to another, because that's the way it goes on Love Train. And it's a true, actual story. It happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. By 1 or 2 o'clock that afternoon, I had written the song. And the weird thing is when it came time to present the song, so everybody can vote to see what songs are going to go on the album, Felton's version preceded my version. Poor Felton didn't know nothing about Love Train. He had a whole nother set of lyrics, right? And when the songs came around, they listened to the one version and 3 or 4 other songs played. And then that same, and everybody said, we already heard this. I said, well, no, this is my version that I put on top of it. And we listened to the song, and I kid you not, I hope you got time for me to finish this. I kid you not, we listened to the song. Nobody looked up. Everybody was looking at the floor. Felton was sitting there with his arms folded, apparently completely livid, right? And the thing went by, and we got all the way down to the end of the voting. We listened to all the music. Unanimously, with the exception of Felton, Love Train was voted onto the album. Felton walks up, and he stands up. He says, I would like to withdraw my music from this song. And that right there, because he had every right to do it. And that right there, everybody kind of looked at him like, what? And it was Danny Thomas. Mr. Danny Thomas. We took a big, long drag off of his joint of weed, and he stood up. And I hope you can bleep this out. He stood up and he said, Felton Pilot, he said, you would deny us a motherfucking hit over this bullshit that you and Michael are going through. He said, man, that's how hit records are made. Dude, this is a blanking hit. And Felton, everybody was looking at Felton, and Felton says, he stood up, he went, okay, I'm sorry. He starts bowing. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And we all just laughed like hell. We had a belly laugh that you would not believe, because it was magic. It was God talking to us saying, guys, this is where it's coming from. That's what makes a hit record right there. And boy, I mean, we laughed so hard, we slapped hands and hugged each other. Me and him were tight. We were cool all over again.
That's just a true story. It makes for the greatest hit. You know, it
Yeah.
reminds me the story, the triangle of I was checking in and she was checking out. That's got to be a true story. I think it's Don Covey. And that was a hit because people could relate to that. And what you guys went through happened all the time. Friends, enemies, liking the same girl. Genius. Unfortunately, we talked about it. How could not be a single on that album, that To The Max album? Why wasn't it a single?
Oh, repeat that. I'm sorry.
I was just wondering, why wasn't that a single? As great as the song it is, it's probably your most requested song now. What determined that not being a single from the album?
Well,
Love Train.
another twist of fate. The album did not yield. It was released. Didn't have anything really making it for some reason. And the promotional staff, I forget the gentleman's name, Bill. At first his name was Bill. And he was on a conference call, and this story was told to me. And they were worried that we weren't going to have a hit. And the record was sitting somewhere around 200,000 or 300,000, which was really bad for us because we usually having gold records at 500,000. Mm-hmm. And so everybody said, well, they're making noise with this cut on the album, Love's Train. He said, why don't we just hurry up and just go ahead and release that and forget about the other record, stop working the other record, let's just release Love Train. And Bill said, you know what? This is what we're going to do. Let's tell them to go ahead and cart it up. Back then they had to put it on a cart to play it. Go ahead and cart it up because we're coming with it. And they went ahead and carted it up and they started playing it and playing it and playing it. And of course, we never came with it as a single, which means they had to go to the store and buy the album to get it. Yep. And that was a smart move. I think we wound up we didn't go gold for a few more years, but we wound up selling about 400,000 records because of Love Train. Now, the weird thing about that, and we know that to be the case today because of the way we were having hit records. Mm-hmm. Had we chosen Love Train as the first single, the album would have went platinum.
See there?
We know that. We know that if we had chosen Love Train as the very first single and not have to go through all those shenanigans by leaving it in the album and making people buy the album, if we chosen it as a single for the first, not for the second, it wouldn't have happened as a second single, but as the first, if we had made that decision and released it first, the album would have gone platinum.
So no single to be had.
And by the way, Love Train is Confunction's biggest song in our show.
Yeah, that's why I was bugging out when I said, well, I can't believe it was. See, because I have the luxury, and I don't know if you know this, being a working DJ back in the days, we get the promotional stuff. And if you're involved in a record pool, so I've seen some of your interviews and said, there's no such thing as a single of Love's Train. But there is, because as a DJ, we got the 12-inch promo of Love's Train. And didn't say side A or side B because We Are the One is on the other side, but they didn't say A or B, but that were limited. They probably made 500 of these to the working DJs throughout the nation. And what's good about this is it's the 12-inch single of Love's Train, and they pressed it on 45 RPM. So when DJs will get a 12-inch vinyl, that's like the difference between 15 IPS and 30 IPS on a reel-to-reel. The quality. When I played this record in the club, and I did, boom, the drums and the bass. So sorry, folks, there is no single for you, but for us working DJs, we did get a 12-inch promotional copy on 45 RPM of Love's Train. It's one of my favorite records. But boom, there you go.
Wow.
And you've seen that before, haven't you? Have you ever seen that vinyl?
Never. I don't own one. I have never seen. Now I knew You Are the One was going to be I think that was just a kind of a poor kind of a way of making it easier for the DJs and people to play it.
Right.
But by then they had realized the mistake. by that time, by the time they did that piece of vinyl, they had realized their mistake, that we hadn't put out the right single first. So of course they were going to try to, get as close to that gold as they possibly could, but any kind of way. I've never had a Love's Train piece of vinyl. That's interesting.
So now we're talking the audience, and there's a lot of comments, and some of my familiar friends but I'm so engaged with our conversation, and because of Facebook and YouTube's and this and that, we can't play all these hits. We could talk about them all day, but we can't play them because we'll get flagged for the copyright. But if you don't mind, if we can give them 2 minutes, since we're on the topic of Love's Train, I got one of your live performances. If you can just chill with me for 2.5, 3 minutes, I want to play this so people know and they get those chills like I get. Because when you said the story a few minutes ago about if by chance, as soon as you say that phrase, it gives me the chills. And then when you hear your performance of this in your shows, it's crazy. So let's take, for the audience and myself and you, let's watch one of your performances. This is a few years ago before the pandemic, which we're going to talk about. You guys were live and kicking and doing shows, and this is one of your moments. Get out, y'all.
Change.
Woo.
If I change, you let me just hold you, baby. I'm down on the street. I said I'm down on the streets. I said I'm down on the streets. I want to see what I need. You said you would be. Baby, wow. And now I'm in need, and please believe me, baby. I love you, baby.
Man, come on, guys. You killed it on that one. That's a great moment in you guys' show. You were enjoying watching that, weren't you?
That's off the chain. I think that was Cash Creek. I think it was
exactly what it was. Good memory. You got a great memory. Everything you talked about, your years, your memories, your names, you got it up here. Very good. Man, we can go through the rest of these albums, but we got to get to Michael Cooper, the solo career. I guess we could say Confunction took a hiatus. I don't know if you could ever say you broke up. Some things might happen I want you to talk about, but it's time for you to go solo, and you go to Warner Brothers Records. So talk about how that happened, because I know that story doesn't get told enough. We talk a lot of Confunction, but Michael Cooper, woo, I got those albums too. But how did that happen? Why did it happen?
Well, so, so many things happen, and you see it in Unsung, and see in a lot of different documentaries. Groups go through so much changes. Sometimes they grow up and become men, or sometimes they don't grow up but they inherit men responsibilities. You got kids, you have maybe 2 or 3 women that you're dating or seeing, and then you're getting divorced, or by that time a lot of people are bringing different things to meetings, and bringing their feelings to the dressing room, and bringing their feelings to the studio. And it got to a point to where Felton had been involved in an altercation with the drummer Lewis, and it just got to be a little bit tough to be in a band with that kind of bad vibe. So I was left. We replaced Felton with a guy named I was going to say Eddie Bailey. Eddie Bailey is his uncle, but I can't believe I cannot think of his name. I love him dearly. Keyboard. We had a new lead singer, new keyboard player, and he came in and he kind of changed our sound a little bit with his lead vocals. And Melvin Carter. Oh my God, I don't know why I couldn't think of Melvin's name. But Melvin Carter came in, and we did an album. I think it was not Burning Love. It turned out to be our last album with Polygram. And of course, that album yielded no hits.
Yes, it was Burning
And we
Love.
finally lost our contract, but we continued to play for about a year. And I was approached by Jay King of Club Nouveau, who was who to this day is an avid confunction connoisseur. He makes it his business to know everything there is to know about confunction. And he approached me. He had his own label, and of course, Club Nouveau had gone platinum with Life, Love, and Pain. And they had this track. He had a track. He said, "Man, you ever thought about just going solo?" I said, "Well, I don't think I want to go solo. I'd like to take the band with me." He said, "Well, I'll talk to Benny about that." But he says, "Right now, I got interest in you being a solo artist." So, of course, we recorded Dinner for Two, which Felton produced. And we recorded a Club Nouveau track that I wrote the lyrics to, called Prove My Love. And we played that for Benny. And next thing you know, Jay had gotten me was it a 2 or 3 record deal? I think he got me a 3 record deal with Warner Brothers. And the first, of course, that was not going to fly with the band. I came back and I sat down with the band. I said, "Listen, I got a chance to sign with Warner Brothers Records, but I am going to ask them, can I feature Confunction on the record?" No, nobody wanted to hear about that. They were, I was pretty much ostracized. I was just like, oh no, that is not going to work. And I remember the meeting was at Cedric's house up in Fairfield. And I remember leaving that meeting thinking, I'm not done with this. I'm going to take this to the highest land. I mean, we got dates coming in for Confunction. I'm not done with this. So we never broke up. The band never broke up. What happened is I went solo and pretty much was basically not asked to leave, but the attitude was, well, you're out, you're going to be on your own. And I think they attempted a couple of dates without me or Felton. Didn't work, never could work after that. And the band did wind up taking a complete break from each other, just boom. 87, I got signed to Warner Brothers, Prove My Love hit. And I kept on having hit records all the way up to 1993 and when my manager, Mr. Mike Gardner, who manages Howard Hewitt and the Whispers, my manager told me I got a gig for Confunction. It was 1993. He says, "I know we're rolling." He said, "But I don't see Warner signing you to another deal. I think they're going to let you go." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I do believe it's not going to work." Right? That's right. So we had our 5 hits at Warner Brothers. Prove My Love. I hope I can get them right here.
Dinner for Two.
Because we had some albums had a couple of nice songs on them that went pretty high on the charts. Dinner for Two. Shoop Shoop. Shoop Shoop was the final big hit. My Baby's House. Should Have Been You was actually got a little bit of pop action from Should Have Been You.
Love that.
And of course, we ended with Shoop Shoop. And of course, our final single was, I think it was So Good. Our final single was So Good. But we had 5 top 10 records as a solo artist. And here my manager was asking me, he had a vision, and he said, let's play it safe and fish with 2 poles in the water. My dad, Roy Lee Cooper, used to always fish with 2 poles in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Gardner said, let's just do this one date, put Confunction together. And so I called Felton to come to one of my shows in Sacramento, and I invited him on stage, and we did 2 songs. We did Too Tight and Got to Be Enough. The audience went crazy. They're the 2 guys who were on stage, the 2 lead singers that and he's out there, and the whole Confunction thing just went crazy right before our very eyes. We sat down the next day and said, let's do this date at the Henry J. Kaiser Center in Oakland, just this one date. We called Maceo, we called Carl. We didn't call anybody else because I had the whole rhythm section right there ready to go. We didn't call the other guys. We knew there was some drug problems going on one end of the street, and we knew some things. But just strategically, the rest of the guys were not going to fit into this. But I did have my other lead singer and my other 2 horn players. That gave us 3 horns and both lead singers, and we never looked back from that point. Few personnel changes, but right now, this Confunction has been together for over 28 years, longer than the first original Confunction. Mm-hmm. So here we are.
And kicking it hard, and you got upcoming shows. Obviously, 2014, you guys got the Lifetime Achievement Award by the National R&B and Music Society. Did you guys show up and physically get this award, or how did that work?
Lifetime Achievement Award. We've gotten a few awards. I can't exactly remember who gave us that one.
That was the National R&B Music Society.
Yeah. And I got a few of them up here on the wall here.
I'm sure you do.
You caught me off guard with that one. I didn't know exactly where they came from. I do know that some of the members, the original band, showed up, and they were given a call because a lot of people are kind of like yourselves. They believe in the nuances and the the cohesion of the brand. Mm-hmm. And anytime, a lot of times, Danny and myself would show up to get awards, and we hadn't seen each other in 3, 4, 5 years. And so I see a couple up here on my wall now that probably should be on his wall. So it was an honor to get these awards and get them. But I think the biggest honor that we could possibly get came from God by having us today. I'll be 70 in November. By having us stay together and make this music for almost 53 years.
And this old school concert revival, it's still going strong. You guys had all these shows and tours, and I got like 5 or 6 dates written down that are coming up in the next few weeks. But before we get to these dates that are coming up, us as entertainers, and I talked to Eddie from Switch about this, the last year and a half, we kind of been forced to not entertain. And I asked Eddie how he handled it. He had a hard time with it. I know you love to perform and music and all that. How did you take this whole not being able to go out there and entertain during this pandemic?
Well, the feeling I had was that of being robbed, actually. No other way to put it. You don't have a lot of time. We got more years behind us than we do in front. We certainly, if we're in demand, and we're doing it in 2019, we're doing 24, 28 dates a year, which is good, for us. And all of a sudden, this pandemic stopped everything. It didn't just stop the music or live performance people like myself. It literally stopped everything that we need to do music. Mm-hmm. Number one, we need people. We need to be close to people. We need to go where people are. So we need to go into studios. We need to go into airports. We need to go into hotels. We need to go. The entire world put on brakes. And that not only was hard, but it instilled a feeling of fear, your animal instinct fear of being hunted.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes sense,
I get
but
it because
we were in,
Eddie had
you
the
felt
same
like you were being
feeling.
hunted
Mm-hmm.
on a daily basis, especially in the beginning when we had the lockdown where, you had to pick a time when you could go to the store and, it was just a weird feeling to see your city with no cars on the street.
Mm.
Now that's strange.
And I'm
When
from
you
Vegas,
have
and
no cars on the street,
when they showed the
now
strip
that's
on the
weird.
news, and I've been in Vegas for 40 years, to see the strip and the hotels with lights, no water fountains, no cars driving by it, and they showed it on the news. It looked like a ghost town. It was a shock. It's a shock to me, and I'm in the entertainment business. I do a lot of promotions and performance stuff, and like you say, we were forced, and I get it when you say hunted. Like we feel hunted, but it's like the quarantine of being in the house is like the isolation is like being hunted. You're hunted by nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I felt hunted by the virus. I had one of my kids and one of my grandkids get test positive,
Mm.
which is probably to have one of your kids and the mother of the child, both of them test positive. It's a fear that there's some parents out there listening that probably go, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's a fear you cannot believe. I would have traded that place with them in a millisecond. That scared me. So I knew it was real. Fortunately, they didn't really show any symptoms. They came through with flying colors.
Good.
The confunction thing came to a screeching halt. I was asked to do a lot of Zoom performing, and my position was as the head of confunction was, this is going to pass, but we got to survive it, and we've got to. I don't even want to go into the politics of it, but we literally have to survive not only the pandemic, but we have to survive that present administration in order to get any kind of way to get back to where we need to be musically, sports, casinos, all the things that need people to come together. And a person that was preaching divisive ideas in the middle of a pandemic and saying that the pandemic was not real. I think that man is probably responsible for at least, I'll just be conservative, at least 150 to 200,000 of the 700,000 people are dead. Because a lot of people believed that they didn't need to wear a mask and they needed to attend the rallies simply because they weren't supposed to. And he said so. So not to dwell on that, and I don't know where you like your show going and everything,
No,
but
I brought it up to a few of my guests because it's something that it's not going to be the first and it's not going to be the last. And like you say, we as entertainers and yourself, you pivot, and people say, you want to do a virtual show or how are we going to adjust? And I'm hoping we're at the tail end of this now, but I just wanted your feelings on that. And everybody I talked to had the same feelings of you as like, we got this nervous energy and we love to perform and we were forced not to, and it's an icky feeling. But let's get on to the good news. You fired up and you're coming back. You got shows as early as I know you're flying tonight, and I don't want you to miss your flight, so you better look at your watch right now and make sure you're not going to miss your flight. But you're going out.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, I'm good. It's just I'm doing for one night, so I can pack a quick bag in about 20 minutes.
Okay, well, we're done in about 5 or 10 minutes. We just want to get to this action right here. Confunction is live and kicking, and you're doing a show in a couple weeks with Stephanie Mills in Greensboro, North Carolina. Correct?
Yes, absolutely.
And then you got this Life Lux Jazz Festival. Look at this lineup.
Yep.
And I know.
Yep.
I know from your previous interviews that you're a jazz lover, and your guitar playing, you were inspired by jazz artists, and I'm a jazz lover. I loved jazz funk, and now they're changing the words of smooth jazz. They're taking the smooth off jazz. Now they're calling it sea jazz or contemporary jazz. But I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Taylor, the sax player. Do you know him?
Yes.
Yeah, well, he's a friend of mine.
It's funny. I wouldn't have put the song together with the name, but yeah.
Paul Taylor is a huge smooth jazz, contemporary jazz. Before he lives in Vegas, we worked together for 30-something years. He's actually going to be on my show in a couple of weeks because his single came out last week and the album comes out November 5th. But I thought you recognized him because when my band played and opened up for your band at the Silverton here in Las Vegas, Paul Taylor was on stage with me playing sax, and he's got 12 albums out on iTunes already, and his new one's coming out. But I just figured that I'd give you that little piece of information. He's going to be on the show in about a week or two. But this lineup is cool with the jazz and the funk, and then you got the Tom Joyner.
Tom Joyner Cruise, and literally. We play at the Jazz Festival in Cabo St. Lucas, and literally we go back and hook up with our old friend, actually it's not even a friend anymore, the old family member. We've played at least seven Tom Joyner cruises, both as Confunction, but mostly as United We Funk when we combine with Larry Dodson and Bobby Harris, and the first one was actually contained Charlie Wilson.
Wow.
And we combine all of our hits and we make one big band and we play the thing called the United We Funk. Then it changed to Masters of Funk, and then it changed to Legends of Funk. Mm-hmm. So we are going on our first Tom Joyner cruise, and I know actually the second Tom Joyner cruise in a long time, just as Confunction, and we are ecstatic about it.
That's going to be fun. Well, there it is, y'all. They're touring again. I'm hoping that I can bring you back to Vegas. We've got mutual friends in Connie Breeze and Sandy Ely who worked with me in bringing you the first time here, but hopefully you can get here to Vegas soon. One more thing is like the whole Confunction, when we talk about the start date, was it 71? Was it 73? And I seen this on your Facebook page, and is this the thing? The road to 50. I mean, literally this year or next year would be your 50th year as Confunction, correct?
Yes, and we're of course thrown off by 1 year.
Right.
So we kind of tell it the tale that if we start back when we did the Watch Stacks, and we kind of keep pushing the line back so we can possibly do our 50th anniversary cruise. We did our 45th.
I remember the
anniversary
45th
cruise, right? And so we did before that we did 2 cruises. So hopefully, and it probably won't be 2022, since you got to start about a year in advance. Hopefully, we'll get to a point where we're able to celebrate being together 50 years. By then, in reality, would be about 51 or 52 years, but we're going to call it the 50th, and it will probably go out of LA. And it'll probably be about a 5-day cruise out of LA. And so
but what about a tour?
We know how to do it now.
Can you do a tour in cities as well, celebrating the 50 years of Confunction? Or is it just
it's actually the way Confunction and most groups right now, we don't really tour. The phone rings and we generally go out on the weekends. We'll go do 1 date, 2 dates, and go back home. 1 day, 2 days.
Bookings in general.
It's safe to call that a tour.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, 2 things I want to thank you for. Number 1, keeping funk alive, because your solo career was funky. Of course, Confunction's funky. You guys are keeping the funk alive by staying together, doing the shows, honoring me. And I know you're getting on a flight and you're busy, and I call you, and it sounds like you're juggling 8 things when I'm talking to you, which is the way it should be. But you took the time out. You took, an hour and a half out. We did have some technical difficulties, and we were late for the show, but that's all right. This stays on Facebook indefinitely, and it'll be on YouTube as well. So if people missed it or they couldn't wait the 20 minutes that it took us to get us online, don't matter. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart as a funk fan, and I'm a Confunction fan as well, that you joined me on this podcast. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me on such a wonderful show and such a wonderful platform. Guys like yourself, man, are keeping it live, keeping it going, taking advantage of the technology and using it the right way and not the wrong way. And I really appreciate you for that, man. God bless you. I love you for that.
All right. And hopefully I can get you to Vegas for a one-off show or And if you ever do come to Vegas, I remember the week before you guys did the show for me, you guys were in town, and I did that. I was doing that other little club down the street. It was that little Italian restaurant, and we had the little funk club in the back. And you and Felton came out with Connie and visited me at that club. Remember, I was DJing on that little stage, and I said, "Yeah, I got you guys next week." And I think you guys stayed in town that whole week. But if you ever just come to Vegas, I'll take you out to dinner. You know, officially dinner for two. You know what I'm saying?
Great.
But
Great.
once again,
I love it.
Thank you guys for checking us out. Facebook Live. This is DJ R.O.B. Taking it back. And we took it back like an 8-track in a Cadillac with the seats back with my man Michael Cooper of Confunction. And I can't say formally of Confunction like some of these other guys I have formally of this for. They're still live and kicking. So Michael Cooper of Confunction, thank you once again. Any last words?
Well, we want to say, and it goes a long way now because, we want to say thank you to each and every person who ever bought and supported our career, bought our records and supported our career. We are still here. We plan to stay around a while. We want to make an announcement that we've got a new bass player. He's a young guy. He's a young guy in his late 30s, early 40s, and he's fitting right in. And believe it or not, he's the first cousin of our bass player who was with us for 28 years, Eric E.Q. Young. Wow. And his cousin, who can wear all of his uniforms, Brian Latour, is now touring with Confunction. And Lord have mercy, we keep on keeping on the love train. We love all you people. We'll have a happy holidays. We'll be out there to bump it with you.
And you got to do your famous, ow.
Ow.
All right. Thank you, Michael Cooper. We're out. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace.